Hi, I'm Tamar. I'm a lived experience practitioner, which means that I used lived experience of my mental health condition to work within mental health services. So why am I making this video? One of the things that that people often ask us is what what's a lived experience practitioner do, or how do you do it? What is it? Blah blah blah. It's kind of hard to explain. However, the reason why I'm making this video is that just a little bit of explaining. I live with sort of a mix of kind of it's called bipolar and borderline personality disorder. Labels often don't mean much, but what I will say is that when I'm particularly anxious, or when sort of mood gets heightened, or emotions are heightened, or kind of triggered, one of the things that happens is that I'll wake up in the morning and I'll be particularly what am I trying to say? I'm making this video particularly. I'm not going to edit it. I haven't put any makeup on. I've not I'm not doing anything to to enhance it, and part of that is because I want to capture the reality. I think that's important. So if I sound like I'm going around in circles and sort of talking a bit weirdly, that is part of it as well. Anyway, back to what I was saying. One of the impacts of living with the condition that I live with is kind of when things are heightened, I'll kind of wake up and my head will be buzzing, but I'll be getting what I think are all these insights, and my brain's very, very active in the morning when I wake up, to the point where I'm kind of paralysed and almost stuck in bed, as I'm kind of, all these incredible things are going through my mind. So yes, I'm just sort of explaining a bit of that, but I just want to talk about how how this this distress, or this impact is used by lived experience practitioners at different levels. So a lot of people are very familiar with people with mental health conditions coming in and telling their story, or peer support workers, who people often equate to basically healthcare support assistants, although the roles that they do are a lot more involved and complex than that. But essentially what all of us are doing, no matter what level we work at, is we're essentially using our bodies and experiences within our work, and we're using that to undertake our roles, whatever they might be. So for the type of work that I'm trained to do, involves service design, consulting to organisations. I'm trying to kind of master's level. So basically, it's kind of, imagine you have a there's a if you employ a change agent or a consultant, the difference with what I do is that I'm working to that level, but I'm tapping into the lived experience that I have behind that, and it's the insight that comes from that. So it's not me going and telling stories about trauma, but it's using the understanding of that trauma that I've that's taken kind of decades, and a lot of, through therapy, different services, my own insight, my own research, blah, blah, blah. It's using the insight from that to help to understand where problems are happening within an organisation. So I'm going to try and explain but how that relates to me kind of like wake up this morning and thinking I've got a load of insights and ways of trying to explain that. So another part of the reason I'm doing this is when I did my master's course, part of the course was understanding, right at the beginning we did a module on, it was essentially on learning, and a lot of that was to understand how we learn and how we think and how that impacts on the work that we're doing, and how to best think about kind of communicating or understanding other people's learning styles. So so the tutors get to know you as time goes on, and so props to Neil Gordon, so Dr. Neil Gordon, who was one of my tutors, who has suggested, said, Homer, the way that you think is quite, it's quite, I don't know, complex, and have you thought about making voice notes or, voice recording? So hence I'm kind of doing this video to try and basically speak out all this kind of what feels like insight. Could be rubbish, but I just feel right at the moment as though I can speak to what or try to explain kind of what I do, but also the the impact that it has on me, and it essentially this will be translatable to what other people do and the impact that it has on them. So so going forward with this, I just want to explain that I work in different contexts. There's some contexts that I work in, I'm kind of recognised. So basically, this is freelance work I do. So essentially, I would be kind of recognised for expertise, or kind of valued for what I do, or I wouldn't be doing it freelance. And then I'm also kind of employed to do work as well. So and that's the case with most of us really, who work as lived experience, lived experience professions in different ways. So coming back to what I'm trying to explain, I've been trying for a long time to try and I wouldn't say try, but I've been communicating for a long time the impact or the issues that are associated with employment of us, and how how certain structures can hurt us and create problems for us, and that hasn't really been it hasn't been, I think, listened to, understood. It hasn't, and I say that because even though I've spoken about it, there's been no kind of action around around that. So there's been no changes, and hence, you know, the impact of that on me, as someone who kind of works within those structures, is something like today, where I wake up, I've got a huge headache. I'm just talking about the impact today. I'm not talking about, you know, the other impacts. But basically, I woke up today, I've got a huge headache. I feel like I haven't slept properly. I feel a huge sense of grief kind of within my within my body. My stomach feels in a knot, and my head, it feels exhausted from the constant processing. So basically, I've woken up and head is going round and round. But one of the things that was I think what happens is that you constantly try and process issues and things that have happened. So basically, it's it feels impossible to try and switch this off. And I was reflecting on why so essentially there's been a huge impact on how I'm feeling, how I am. So as working as a lived experience practitioner, what I do then is I think about actually why has this impacted on me so much. What can I learn from it? What is my body trying to tell me? And when I have a response like this, what I know is that this is tapping into some very old stuff. You know, it's hitchhiking a ride on sort of responses to trauma that have happened a long time ago. So part of what I have to do is then separate it and try and work out what is from then and what is from now. So this huge response. Obviously, there's quite a bit from then. So I've had to the process of having to separate that. Like I say, it's a huge response. So I kind of had to. Yesterday, I had to sort of do the emergency things that you have to you know, like your first aid essentially, where I contacted my mental health team because it was huge response, felt awful. So I had to manage the first wave of that, which was essentially first aid. Then I happened to have a psychotherapy session where I was able to kind of talk through you know, the impact of that. And the point of the psychotherapy session is not to be it's not supervision for my work, it's supposed to be for me. So, you know, essentially we're then having to within that session, you know, trying to unpack actually this is a response to something that's happened in a work situation. So how much of this is work situation, how much of it is kind of old stuff. And this is where the insight comes from working as a lived experience practitioner, because the thing is it's both, and you have to be able to acknowledge what has been triggered from the past and what that's trying to tell you, or what's healing, and also but the thing is that whatever has happened happened in the present. Generally, there is this isn't all about old stuff, and there will be kind of a valid reason as to why you've responded that way. And I think particularly with myself, there's been a lot of work and therapy, and what I know is that I don't usually have this level of response to something. So the level of emotion or just this kind of like level of emotional response is not usual. It's something that that I thought had been healed maybe roughly a decade ago. So the fact that it's kind of returning is something that I have to understand sort of on a personal level, but it also tells me something about the work that I'm doing. And this is where the insight from understanding things that have happened in the past, where I'm trying to think of the best way of describing this really, but where there have been issues around power, misuse of power, or also ways in which I felt that a need hasn't been met, or that I haven't necessarily that I haven't received care, or as a child, that would be love, affection, that would be some of the basic things that you need. So a lot of that has been triggered, but then I have to think about why has that been triggered within a work context, and what this is where the training kicks in, because if something has mirrored to some extent something that's happened in the past, part of what I'm doing is unpicking actually how much of that is past stuff and how much is that is me or what's within me, and how much of that is actually what's going on within the workplace. So and what I've realised is that part of the response that I'd had yesterday was around I think there are trying to think of the best way to describe this. When sort of as a staff member, or someone who is receiving is on the receiving end of discrimination, what my experience has been is that sort of as a working professional, what I have to do is unpick actually how much is my feelings, and how much of this is kind of real. And part of the process for me doing that is I have to research, I have to go back and read and understand, actually is this just a Tamar thing, or is this something that that is bigger than that, and is wider than that, and is experienced by others. Part of the difficulty with doing research on this is that there isn't the stats or the data collected generally within organisations where you'd be able to have a look at this. So I can't use data that's based within I suppose in NHS, or that's even collected within third sector or educational establishments. I just can't do that. So the the methods I use instead are going back to the survivor movement and other people that work as lived experience practitioners. What I do is I ask questions. I kind of I try to understand, is this something that happens to others? The resounding response that I get back is yes, and I also get back, whilst there isn't kind of data that's kept or that's that's measured within organisations, what I do get is that there is literature written. Some of it is peer reviewed, some of it is more kind of like an editorial or sort of within peer reviewed journals, or a lot of it is grey literature where people have written about this kind of in different ways. Some people write about it as an experience they've had. Others kind of go a little bit deep when they talk about the some of the causes of this, or kind of apply it back to theories and I say theories, basically kind of existing knowledge of how organisations and systems work, and how if you think about things like group theory and theory of how people work and together and blah 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 blah. So there are some things that are written about that. Generally, a lot of the literature around that is relating to these things happening within research contexts and sort of working within educational establishments. There's a fair amount of peer support worker type literature that to a less deep extent will talk about this. I'm trying to explain what I'm trying to say. So the part of the work that I'm doing then is trying to take some of the basically take the literature that's available and then translate that into the context that I'm working within, which is it's not a research context. I don't work as a peer support worker, and often I have to be aware that the contexts in which other things are written are different. So so basically it's trying to translate it over. Essentially what I'm trying to say is that that's kind of the research process. It might sound a bit long-winded, but essentially this is what I do to partly understand and differentiate between actually what is Tamar, what's hitchhiking a ride on Tamar's stuff, and what is actually real 2020 stuff that exists that's happening within organisations. So what I've found from doing that kind of essentially you have to do how do I explain this? You've got your pure kind of research methods that are supposedly tried and tested and all the rest of it. When it comes to areas that it's like Star Trek going where no man has gone before, blah blah blah, essentially if you're going somewhere kind of new and there isn't the data, and it's just like kind of like your literature search or something, and you're trying to work out actually how do we measure this stuff, how do we understand it, how so this is what I'm trying to do, and it's very difficult when you're doing this and you're kind of you're on your own. You're not doing this with a team, so you're not able to discuss it. Also, the emotional impact that is on you I don't have a supervisor to speak to about this. Fortunately, I've got I've got good line management. I've got a good psychotherapist. So sometimes this stuff kind of hit the supervision type element sort of will hitch your ride where it shouldn't hitch your ride. But hey, it helps. And also the other thing that you do when you don't have kind of formal supervision built in is you get what you need from other lived experience practitioners, this, and you kind of you find ways of managing, but it's not structured or built in. So this is something that I can't kind of take to another lived experience consultant who either works at the same level or higher than me, like you would expect for supervision, where we can kind of unpack it on either a peer-to-peer or a sort of mentor type way, and can think about it, and what you would do non-supervision. Anyway, where have I got to? Yeah, going back to research, working out, actually, is this a real thing? Is it a Tamil thing? Is it a 2020 thing? And what I get from the data and elsewhere is that this resounding yes. And as I speak to people, the yes gets louder. It's like, yes, this is really hurting us. This is painful. This is a thing. This happens in lots of different organisations, or it's replicated in lots of different contexts. So again, that tells you something. That's information that you take it back and you think. I'm thinking back to the master's work that I'd done, where part of what we did was looking at. Those of us to think about it. What was it? This is part of the sort of consulting training we had, but the background of that was understanding kind of people and how they act within groups, and looking at things like Beyond's theory, which, oh God, reading Beyond is like reading freaking syrup. It's but I mean, it's lovely and stuff, but oh God, it's when I'm feeling tired like this and my head hurts, like, that's a time not to read Beyond, not to try and understand it. It's like, oh my God. Anyway, some of the things that we learnt were around how people act within groups, and you kind of you'll get things like you have a group. If I think about it like a round, that's the group there, and you get sort of hierarchies, a way that people act with each other, and different things. You get your kind of leadership bit, and basically, although you have a leader, the leader has to be there really with the permission of the group. The group doesn't like the leader, they'll eject the leader. So this is the theory behind it anyway. So like going on to things like Donald Trump in America, people will there's loads of outrage around that, but at the end of the day, people have voted him in, and people are kind of keeping him there. It's not like the whole of America has suddenly said, hey, this is enough, and overthrown him. So there's something about the group that is either passive and doesn't react, or that so something about that leader is keeping them there. So that tells you something about what's going on within that group. And you have things like, you have pairings where I think the way they described it was people coming together, and sometimes they have a metaphorical child together as they kind of get together and work together, and but there's something about them going off and working again, kind of in a way that's not with the rest of the group. Again, that tells you something about it. Anyway, all this stuff is fascinating, but what I'm coming to is the lived experience practitioner role. That is always within organisations with the lowest of the hierarchy generally, and also the nature of the roles that we do, where we have to speak out against stigma. We have to apply a different lens to the work that we do. There's lots of things about what we're doing where when you think about groups, you have often what they call is like a mouthpiece of the group. So this is the role of the person that will say stuff or say the unsayable that's kind of going on within the group. And this person, there can be a mix of often the group is quiet because the mouthpiece speaks and it says things that the group wants to say but can't, and the mouthpiece will say some things that will have some people within the group, and this is where the splits are, you know, some people in the group will be rooting for the mouthpiece. Yes, you know, saying exactly what needs to be said, blah 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 blah, and but they don't say it themselves, but they're rooting, you know, they're rooting for this mouthpiece. And for other people within the group, what the mouthpiece is saying will be incredibly, it'll be scary, it will be upsetting the power balance, it will be saying things that they really don't like, the response basically to that mouthpiece is that because it's saying the things that the group essentially either wants to say and won't say, or that you know, it's kind of picking up on, that basically picks up on a lot of communication and then sort of regurgitates it. And normally a lot of the time when it's happening, it's kind of an unconscious process. When you kind of understand it and know that you're being a mouthpiece, or that you are the mouthpiece, then you have to kind of think about that. And so part of what I do is I know about this, and really it's like you have to make that decision. It's actually, do you step back and not do that because the group is putting you in that position? So do you so actually I'm not going to take this you know, this role or this place that you've given me. You know, you have to you know, take your own responsibilities and say these things yourself, or because it's not being said to you, say it. One of the things I know that is the kind of person I am, I tend to say it. You know, it's and part of the reason why I do that is I'm not in an environment where I'm supported to work to the if I explain that, as a consultant, you would take that information and you would use it differently. So what you know, so as I've said, you know, you've got this mouthpiece stuff, you would take the data or the understanding from that, and what you would try and do is I think present it back within the group, but when these answers are kind of within a group, what you would do is try and extract that from the group, or enable a way where that can be communicated and discussed within a group. To do that, you need to have some kind of you need to be in a position where you can do that, where you can consult with and what I've understood is that I can't do that from a hierarchical position where I'm kind of down here. Can't be done or heard that way. You know, tried it. I can't. You know, I know it's not particularly me or that I'm rubbish at it, because in other situations and contexts I'm able to do that. However, when I'm in a kind of a group or situation where I'm sort of in a position that's down here and that can't be heard or, you know, consulting to with on an equal basis can't be then tolerated within a group, because you're not in the position or with the permissions that you need to be able to do that. So instead there's this kind of mouthpiece role, and I kind of you know, I take that on. Now there's two ways you can look at that. You can look at actually what's going on, Tamara, as to why you're doing that. So again, I have to go away and unpack that, and also think as well about well, how much of this is needed, or how much, I don't know, kind of like why is that being done? And it's all data. It's all things that you can understand, you know, when you kind of unpack it and think about it. But part of the dangers of being either the mouthpiece or, you know, I've talked about the hierarchy here, and you tend to have, there's a position for a scapegoat within a group. Now, there's not, I haven't really seen anything written within literature where it particularly applies this theory to lived experience practitioner working in that way. It is something that, as we were doing the sort of the master's training, we were able to understand and write about, and several of us who work as lived experience practitioners kind of wrote about kind of what happens, and this this hierarchy or understanding why it happens within organisations. I think one of the sad things is that hasn't yet translated into the literature, into peer-reviewed literature, and this knowledge is something that's stuck in our heads. It's not kind of out there. It's not known, understood. I do everything I can within the organisation that I work in to try and communicate this knowledge. But again, from working within, you know, like a group where I'm down here, so viewed as down here and viewed as, you know, basically a lot of this insight or knowledge can't be heard. Hence me waking up in the, you know, in the morning with all this stuff going around in my head, because what I'm trying to do is solve a puzzle that seemingly can't be solved. It's really it's so really complex, really difficult, but I won't accept that it can't be solved. It's like there's got to be a way to solve it. So my head is going rah 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 and trying to do that. One of the other things I wanted to say about the process and working from an experiential lens is that one of the things you have that you do when you go through things like psychotherapy, and when you're trying to unpack, understand, you know, what's happened to you, how it affects you in the present, blah blah blah, and you do that different ways. It might be through psychotherapy, it might be through you know, people do things like through, I don't know, yoga, talking to their peers. People can do this in lots and lots and lots of different ways. But essentially, what you learn about is that something that you've gone through stuff, things, and those things are you know, they give you insight into power imbalances, how people work. There's more to it than just you know, if you've had a trauma, if you've had abuse, if you've had neglect, if you've had various needs not being met, there is insight behind that goes beyond the actual trauma itself. So as a lived experience practitioner, we work at different levels. What I try and do when something is triggered is to understand, again, I've said sort of what's me, but also what's like 2020 stuff, and how does what I've been through in the past help me to understand, looking through an experiential lens, what's going on now. And part of that extreme pain reaction that I've had has been around my experience of not being listened to, not being believed, also coming from a background where kind of ultra religious, and that religion, belief or doctrine would trump any needs that I had, no matter how fundamental they were. So, as an example, the need to be safe, loved, cared for. Within the organisation that I was in, there was kind of a policy that where things were dealt with in-house if there were any kind of sort of abuse or things going on. It wasn't a policy to go to police or involve outsiders, because it's a very insular organisation. So hence, there were a lot of abuses of power that were dealt with kind of internally, and then you get all the stuff that goes along with that. So things like where things are able to be carried on, or you get victims feeling not believed or even punished for abuse that others have done, where they're viewed as the the bad person or being complicit, or so if a child's been abused, it may have been that the or an underage person, it may have been that the child or underage person was viewed as complicit, or even kind of initiating or taking part in the kind of viewing something basically as this is fornication, or this is something where you two have done a bad thing, and actually maybe the victim's a bit more responsible for this, than the perpetrator. So it's viewed through kind of a warped different lens, and people who who experience this and then speak up will be it's like being gaslighted. It's like there's in a different context it would be handled differently, but it's not. So I think, coming back to my own experience, I know that in a different context, in a different environment, what I say would be respected or treated differently or heard differently within the context that I'm in. And coming back to Beyond's theory, etc., it can't be heard, or it won't be listened to, or I'm viewed as the I don't know, the wrong, the bad person kind of thing. And it's not, and the thing is that when you get data like this, this is where the really difficult thing comes in, because what you have to do is sort of remember that this isn't whatever you've been through in the past, or this is different. This is 2020, and it's not the same. But what you can understand from it is that people in groups work in a particular way. What you can do is you can understand it from the context of people who've experienced trauma in the past. Why is it that people are more sensitive or susceptible to these types of I'd say conditions, but I also mean processes isn't the right word. I'm thinking of basically the way that people are behaving within a group, and again it's kind of it's data. It helps you to understand that this stuff is actually going on. Again, it's not what I would say is that when you've again, working as a lived experience practitioner, what you're having to do is understand that this isn't the same thing that you've been through, but there's similarities that are triggering this strong emotional response. So for me, when I get this strong emotional response, it's like, well, why first of all, why is this happening? And then what I do is I understand the similarities, which are in kind of power imbalances, or where things aren't going right, or where basically things are breaking down, or blah. Keep repeating what I'm saying, but essentially it tells me something about what's happening within a group, and I need to be able to step out of the huge, strong emotional reaction that I have kind of. So it takes, when you're using your body for consulting effectively, you kind of, it's very, very tiring, and you have to know, you have to experience something and then step back to understand what that emotional data is telling you. And again, I'm trying to explain the differences between working as a lived experience practitioner and doing this generally, because this is what a lot of consultants do. I mean, this is what psychotherapists will do when they're kind of with a client. They'll pick up emotional data and then go back in supervision and try to unpack it, or they try to unpack it with the person that they're working with, and part of that is about using your body as a tool to understand emotional data. However, when you are and the other thing I wanted to add was that a lot of psychologists, psychotherapists, people working in mental health have got this kind of lived experience. The difference between what they're doing and what a lived experience practitioner will be doing is that a lot of these models ask you to essentially put a wall between your lived experience, between you and the person you're working with. So even when you're using emotional data or transference, it's kind of it's done in a different way according to a different model, because there are a lot more kind of boundaries set up, and kind of trying to work look at very much keeping your stuff and the client stuff kind of separate, where the best way to explain what is done as lived experience practitioners is looking at where the two interplay, and also the boundaries are different, because you're trying to understand it from that trauma perspective, but you're trying to draw the insight from the trauma itself, and trying to use that to help you understand what's going on now. And it's that bit. If I try and explain it, you've got your trauma world, your experience world, you've got your stuff that's going on in an organisation now, and what you're trying to do is there's some bridge between the two, where these two worlds that shouldn't meet, they shouldn't really communicate. They've got different ways of understanding, talking, and in fact it's taboo for the two to meet. Within mental health services, there is a great separation between kind of us and them, service users and staff. And there's something about the work of a lived experience practitioner which is very taboo. It's degenerate in a way, because it's breaking down that kind of us and them. It's kind of building the bridge between the two different types of knowledge and insight. And when you're working as a lived experience practitioner, what you will find is that you will get you'll get opposition from the mental health services side, but you also within the survivor movement that we're connected to, there'll also be opposition from within that too, because the two sides often don't like each other or want to meet. They want to be separate, and they both feel hurt by the other, and they, so there's that resistance in kind of creating that bridge and the insight behind it. So I'm just trying to what I'm trying to do is to try and explain the processes behind what some of us do as lived experience practitioners, and again, you've got to think about this to different levels that people work at, but I'm also trying to show what the impact is as well, because it's like I think we've compared it before to being like the canaries. You go down and into the mines, and there's something about the canaries where they can pick up where there's kind of gas before the miners can, and that's because you're attuned differently, and then the canaries will sing, and that singing is something that will be in that mouthpiece that will save that saves a lot of lives. The miners can get out, and I say things can change, but basically they avoid kind of catastrophe. But then the sad thing about the canaries is that they go down in their cages, they're restricted, they can't fly about, they can't spread their wings, and also see, what I didn't realise was that the canaries, after they sing, they were just left there to die. So they were there singing and letting people know what was happening, and people sort of took that warning and they saved themselves. But then those canaries were left behind in their cages to die, and nobody really cared about them or cared about saving them. And at the moment, as lived experience practitioners, we're very much like these canaries, because we're going down within dangerous conditions. We're caged. We have no career progression. We're kind of like these canaries that go down. There's something about you've got these beautiful canary birds who are they're different to the miners, and they're kind of a bit of a curiosity or something that's perched on a shelf or something, and they're not but they're kind of there, and they don't want to go down without them. They're not it's all this co-production stuff. They don't want to go down without us, but we're kept in a cage. We're not equal, and when the going gets tough and we sing, we're left in those cages, and we're left to die essentially, and those lives aren't kind of worth saving and taking up along with the minors. And although that might sound, that sounds like a massive hyperbole, a massive, being very doom and gloom and kind of, that's a really extreme example. The problem really is that it's closer to the bone than you think, because one of the reasons why I sing so loud is that I've seen as part of these sort of deep dives and doing trying to find the data or trying to speak to people about the impact on this. There've been I've come across people that too many people that have been impacted where they've ended up in hospital, or they've attempted suicide, overdose, self-harmed, kind of things that would put their life in danger, their health in danger. And this was something that really, it really kind of, it had driven me for a long time, and wanting to prevent this. And then I think, sadly, it's kind of, it got to me so that I was like one of these canaries, because, about 3 months ago, I kind of joined, those, I say those people, and I just want to say that 10 good decade of working in this area, I've not responded in this way or to this level. So I don't view myself as a weak person or someone that is over ill or kind of overreacting, but 10 years later, when I'm worn down and the and that pain of just kind of having to carry it on just for too long and not being believed too many times, and not basically I join my colleagues who are in the kind of the hospital club, where you kind of the pain that has come from doing this work, difficult to say this out loud, and to it leaves you feeling quite vulnerable. But I want to say this because people keep this hidden, and people are ashamed when they if they succumb to this, but I felt like there was essentially I'll say no way out, but I think what I'd realised was that no matter how much I sang, and it didn't matter how much education I did, how much research or data, or if I presented this in the most professional way possible, if I wrote something, if I was respected elsewhere, and things that I've written elsewhere or said elsewhere were taken seriously, but in this context they could never be. I just could not be heard. I could not be seen differently. And the I think the realisation and the desperation, the sadness in that moment where it felt unbearable, that that's where I'd taken it'd been a couple of overdoses over 2 weeks, and I kind of ended up back in hospital. And again, I'll say that this hasn't happened for a very long time, and I don't, again, you know, I don't view myself as weak or ill. It's just a normal reaction to an abnormal situation, and you know, other people have responded in the same way before, and you know, I think it's just testament to it's taken a decade for me to, you know, to get to that stage really. So I think it's actually testament to the strength that I have, that didn't happen sooner. Yeah, but also as this lived experience practitioner, as someone who's trained to use the body and kind of understand what it's telling you and blah 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 blah, even that's data, it tells you stuff. So you know, this is me kind of like unpacking it, understanding it. What is that telling me about the organisational situation or environment that I work within? And oh my god, I can't bloody switch it off. So this yeah, if you've got this far, oh my god, that's pretty incredible. But essentially what I've just been trying to do is essentially understand it a bit better, and also it just came to me this morning that that what I'm thinking of helps to explain kind of what we do. So people, you know, keep saying, well, what do you do and how is that different to the way that we do it, and blah 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 blah. And I just thought these thoughts that are coming into my mind helping to explain that. So yeah, and you know, excuse the awful looking face and the no hair done, and the fact I'm in bed and wearing my worst possible pyjamas as well, you know. And I haven't you know, like normally if I was doing a video, oh no, all that makeup would be on, and you know, I'd be in a different position, all the rest of it. But part of this and part of the data behind it is actually being quite real and actually showing, you know, this face, the face that's it's not kind of it hasn't got the mask on, and it's not, you know, made to look more aesthetically pleasing, and the, you know, the hairs aren't they sort of kind of all over the place. Oh my god, look at this. Oh, look at this. Oh. And they, you know, like the bags under the eyes from not having slept all night and stuff. And oh my god, this nightie that is horrendous, but it's also quite comfy and comforting, and you know, feels nice on the skin, even though it's kind of old, and you know, it's just, you know, yeah. So all of this is data, you know, and I'm talking through it. It's rough. What will happen is that as I process it, I intend to write it, to think about it, to use it within the work that I do, and then it will be more polished. But you know, actually I need to, you know, part of the process is seeing what is kind of ugly, or what is underneath, or you know, hopefully you don't think I'm too ugly, hey. But what basically what I'm trying to say is that there's impacts, there's stuff where you won't see what's under the, you know, what we have to bring to work, where we, you know, we kind of you don't actually see the process that goes on behind this, or the work behind it. So that's it. Those are my voice notes, and 1 hour and 5 minutes. Bloody hell! I ain't gonna edit it either. You know, it's a process. Another time I might do a video and it'll be edited and thought out and blah blah blah. But nah, this is the where you get to see the process, the workings, how it happens. So boom, yeah, and also it's, you know, it's for my, you know, it's for my also this is me processing for myself and understanding for myself, and part of the difficulty that I have is speaking it, is kind of, I speak it a lot, but trying to get that flow when my mind is racing and I feel as though I can't articulate something, or I'm very conscious of the word whiskers, or forgetting words, or losing my place. So part of this is me just trying to get used to speaking things out, and hopefully getting better at it. So, anyway, finished. Bye.